here to talk a little bit more about the Mueller report fallout. Republican National Committee spokesperson Liz Harrington. Liz, good to see you as always.
Me too.
How worried are you about potential impeachment hearings?
Not at all. The Democrats are grasping at anything, but I'm not exactly sure what the high crime or misdemeanor would be, other than that President Trump duly won the presidency in 2016.
Let me just play this out with you for a minute. Is there a chance impeachment hearings could be good for President Trump? Bill Clinton ended with his highest approval numbers ever.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to overreach because the American people know there's no there there. $35 million later, and all we have to show for it is a 448-page wannabe resistance spy novel that left out the spying.
Well, I mean, okay, from the report, it identified numerous links between individuals with ties to the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. The evidence wasn't sufficient to support criminal charges. That's not, didn't find anything.
No, reading the report, it's very clear that this was 19 Democrat lawyers handpicked by Robert Mueller who really were upset with the result, the outcome of the 2016 election. So you read page by page, and there's innuendo and suggestions of impropriety, but at the end of every chapter, it's a major letdown of no collusion and no obstruction.
Telling Don McGahn to fire Robert Mueller isn't wrong?
Not firing someone is not obstruction. Telling someone, being upset.
I'm not asking whether it's obstruction or not. I'm asking whether it's the right thing to do or not.
Being upset that a band of resistance bureaucrats within the Justice Department took it upon themselves to smear this president, accused him of treason for 2 years.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Robert Mueller never accused him of treason. And nobody in the Mueller office.
No, ma'am.
No, hold on. The facts are important here. Nobody, not one person in Robert Mueller's office, ever accused the president of treason.
What is the implication?
No, you said they accused him of treason. They didn't. That's important.
They used a dossier that accused the president of working with the Russians. There was never any collusion.
I'm not sure. How did Robert Mueller use the dossier?
That's why we're all here to begin with. That's why the spying of Carter Page was. That's why
I'm still confused about how. Okay, we'll leave that. Go to what Mitt Romney had to say about this report, the Republican from Utah. I'm sickened at the extent and pervasiveness of dishonesty and misdirection by individuals in the highest office of the land, including the president. Reading the report is a sobering revelation of how far we have strayed from the aspirations and principles of the founder. Tell me this: if this report had been written about a Democratic president, I can't imagine that you would have the same feelings about it.
I think the vast majority of Republicans are sickened by an out-of-control Obama Justice Department that took it upon themselves to spy on the political party out of power, their political enemies, the Trump campaign.
Is this about, hold on,
but is this the American people? And the pervasiveness of dishonesty is from James Clapper, John Brennan, Jim Comey, Adam Schiff. That's the pervasiveness of dishonesty that Republicans are upset about.
Wait, none of them
they should be mentioned in the report.
But none of them are president of the United States. Isn't the president of the United States held to a higher standard?
Of course, he did nothing wrong. There was no collusion.
Okay, hold on.
There was no collusion. The entire premise of this
Don McGahn to fire Mueller was not wrong?
No.
Lying to the American people about the meeting in Trump Tower wasn't wrong?
This is such a misconception. If the president wanted to fire Robert Mueller, he would have done it. He didn't need Don McGahn to do it. And he would have done it if he wanted to, but he decided to stay out of the way because he knew he was innocent from day one. There was never any there, just as Peter Strzok said in May 2017. Okay? So that's the real scandal here. They knew there was no collusion, and yet they started the special counsel report anyway.
All right. Well, so far I haven't heard anything different than the talking points from the White House.
I haven't heard any different talking points from the Democrat Party, apparently.
No, I think these are just questions. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
All right, a few days after the report's release, the back and forth on this issue that Bob Mueller raised, whether the president obstructed justice and whether this calls into doubt his election in the first place. Keep in mind, the president has always termed the Mueller investigation a witch hunt, thought it was very, very unfair. Now, I have periodically mentioned this to prominent Democrats, not so prominent Democrats, as to whether this puts that issue to bed. My last guest, Democratic Representative Stephen Lynch, said for him it does. We're going to show that in just a second, but to Frank Luntz now and what he makes of that. You know, Frank, it is interesting. The congressman was, at least to my memory, and I've raised this with some prominent ones, whether they now recognize Donald Trump as the duly elected president. He was the first to tell me yes. What do you make of that?
Well, I think what's important was the other aspect of what he said to you, that he does not want 2020 to be a referendum on whether Donald Trump should be impeached or not, because if it is, according to our data, the Democrats would lose that election in a landslide. That the president has approval ratings of about 43, 44%, which is a little bit lower than one would expect with the economy doing as well as it is doing. But the Democrats are making such I'll give you an example. We did a focus group in Los Angeles a week ago, and I asked people to give me a word or phrase to describe Congress. My favorite response, the person said, "Can I use 2 words?" I said, "Sure. Shut up." I don't mean to be disrespectful to members of Congress watching, but the public says, fix immigration, improve the economy, please fix health care, and just shut up about all this other stuff. And I don't think Washington hears that.
Does that apply to Republicans as well who want an investigation to start on how this investigation started?
Yes, it does, Neil. They've had enough. They're looking for quality of life and standard of living solutions. They know that the country's better off today than it was a few years ago, but they want to make sure that it continues for the next coming years. You know, it's been about 10 years since we were fully in a recession, and the public wants this economic resurgence to continue. And they don't believe yelling about politics or partisanship is going to help anybody anywhere.
You know what's interesting, and people, this is not a red or blue, a liberal or conservative argument for me, but the economy is quite strong. The markets have been off the charts, and that alone and the strength that's ensued with, unemployment levels for virtually every major demographic group in this country at record lows. And yet the president could be in for the fight of his life here to get reelected. And I'm wondering why that is. Now, it could be the Mueller hangover. It could be the president's personal issues and tweets and all. I don't know. But do you?
Yeah, I know a little of this, and I appreciate that question. And you and I have not seen each other through TV in some time. It's great to see you again because of that question. It is the way the president communicates. Too often, he can be his own worst enemy. It is the way the media treats him. They're never going to give him a break, never going to acknowledge the successes that he has. It's too often a lack of focus, so that you have the House saying one thing, the Senate saying something else, and the president saying something completely different. When you combine all 3 of those, he really should be at about a 55% approval rating, but he's not. And this is one of the challenges that the White House is probably considering. But the Democrats are actually making it easy for him by insisting on the partisanship, the ugliness, the calls, as Senator Warren did, for impeachment, even after seeing that there are no grounds for it. The Republicans are not effective, but the Democrats are actually foolish in what they are doing. It's not what the American people want.
Well, if you're right, once again, they could be grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory.
And they did this. By the way, Neil, in 2002, this is exactly how they behaved on Enron. They did this in 2009, 2010, after Obama got elected. They should have done well in that elections. They've proven over and over again that they get too extreme, they get too loud, and they end up hurting themselves in the election.
Frank Luntz, always learned something, my friend. Thank you very, very much. Don't make yourself a stranger. Frank Luntz.
Thank you.
Reads the political landscape unlike anyone else that I know.